Great. Well, welcome, everybody. This is, as I said, I'm the director of the Land Bank, and I'm also representing Brandon Cadwell from Parks, who could not be here tonight. We do have Angela Broderick, the Climate and Sustainability Coordinator for the county, here too, to represent the Environmental Stewardship Department. So tonight's meeting is about the county's update to the Recreation, Open Space, and Stewardship Plan, and we'll get into the details shortly. But first, we want to do an acknowledgement. Let us acknowledge we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have called this place home since time immemorial, and let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation. Now I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen from Cascadia Consulting. There are consultants on this project, and she's going to talk to you about the tech piece of this and how to participate in tonight's meeting.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lincoln, and thanks everybody so much for being here tonight. Just a couple of things that we wanted to get through, recognizing that we're 2 years into doing a lot of online everything to online meetings, but we did just want to walk through a couple of technology tips and tricks to help us have the best experience together tonight. So using your computer to connect to Zoom seems to have the best connectivity. Using the chat function to submit any questions and comments along the way, and order requests to speak to the group. So if you can enable your chat, that is a great tool for us this evening. And then also using a headset or taking the call from a quiet space to reduce background noise and or echoes. Our other final tip and trick here is keeping your phone or headset muted unless you are speaking to the group. Next slide, please. We also just wanted to recognize and provide the option of closed captioning. So if you would like closed captioning enabled on your end to help with your experience tonight, please click on the show subtitle to turn the transcript on. To adjust the caption size, click the upward arrow next to the start video, stop video. Click video settings, the accessibility, and then move the slider to adjust the caption size. So I'm going to leave this instruction slide up here for just a moment in case you would like to enable closed captioning. All right, we can go to the next slide, please. So to get us started here, we did want to take a moment and request that you all rename yourselves with your first name and the island that you are dialing in from tonight, that you're participating in from tonight. In order to do that, to change your name, click on the participants bar. So you should see the participants bar on the right-hand side of your screen. Hover over your name, click more, and then rename. And we'll give you a moment to do that. Once you've had a chance to do that in the chat, if you wouldn't mind sharing your favorite public place to visit in San Juan County and putting that into the chat. Your favorite public place in San Juan County. And Haley, who's here helping to support this meeting tonight, put the question in the chat. So take a moment. If you hover at the bottom of your screen, you should see an option to open up the chat function as well. And you can answer this question: what is your favorite public place to visit in San Juan County? And put that in the chat.
Ooh, I'm getting them just to me. It looks like we have from Tracy, the Land Bank Channel Preserve Lopez. And Judy said Mount Grant is my favorite public place. Steve said Chadwick Hill, and Karen said Watmo. Okay, one more. We've got Janet said Co-Preserve. See if I can change that so chats aren't just going to me tonight.
I just changed it, so I think we're good there.
Great. Thanks, Gretchen.
Excellent. Thanks everybody that participated. And if you just joined, we have asked people to hover over their name, rename themselves. their name and the island that they're joining us from, and then to answer in the chat, what is your favorite public place to visit in San Juan County? So feel free to put that in the chat as we keep moving here. We can go to the next slide, please. Excellent. So we are going to use, we're on Zoom, and acknowledging, recognizing you likely have spent more time than you ever thought you would on Zoom over the last couple of years. But if you have any issues with Zoom, please don't hesitate to email Haley and she can help you, or put any Zoom issues that you have in the chat here too, and we can help get you oriented as we move through this meeting together tonight. And the other feature that we'll be using is Poll Everywhere. And she's also available to help troubleshoot any issues you may have. We've got a couple of questions, a few questions actually, that we'll be asking throughout the course of our time over the next hour together. And we'll be using Poll Everywhere, which is a polling online function. So that's her contact information, both on the screen and then also in the chat there. We can go to the next slide, please. Excellent. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Lincoln.
Very good. So we're going to talk a little bit about the background here of the project. We can go on to the next slide. So the context here is that the county is currently updating its 6-year Parks, Trails, Natural Areas, and Non-Motorized Transportation Plan. It has a new name this time around that better reflects its content, the Recreation, Open Space, and Stewardship Plan. You'll notice that non-motorized transportation is not in here. That's really shifting back to the comp plan and to the transportation improvement plan. So that's definitely one of the changes going forward. So this plan update is designed to maintain the county's eligibility for state parks, recreation, and conservation grant funding after the current plan expires on November 1st. And also, obviously, we're hoping to hear from you all on what you're looking for and what you'd like to see. The timeline here is short. We're going to be taking public feedback and drafting simultaneously for this plan. So you can comment on it through the 17th. You can see the link there, or go to the county's website. It'll show you exactly what to do. But we're on a very tight timeline with a goal of publishing this by November 2nd. In terms of past engagement, this plan builds on the county's community efforts over the last 6 years. And some of this work includes a number of surveys that were done from 2017 through 2019 of visitors, of residents and businesses, voters. You can see them all here, really focusing on the question of visitation and issues around that with crowding and just overall capacity. We also did a fairgrounds master plan update with public comment back in 2018, and then in 2021, the Sustainable Tourism Management Plan, where there are 3 community workshops to hear feedback on plan, vision, goals, strategies, and actions. The 2036 comprehensive plan update is in progress too, and there are opportunities for people to comment at meetings and on the draft plan. And that brings us back to the Ross plan update. So just looking back at what we did over the last 6-year period, it's actually fairly rewarding to do. So this plan made available $4,550,000 in funding for parks, recreation, and conservation projects. Some of the projects completed included acquiring almost 1,500 acres of land outright for natural areas and some for parks. Also 130 acres of conservation easement acquisition on private land. Over 2 miles of shoreline were acquired and an additional access to 2.3 miles of public tidelands were made available through our efforts. Some of the key projects, if we're looking at land acquisition on San Juan, we did several projects actually adding to the Katy Mountain Preserve, which were highly significant. We acquired Zylstra Lake Preserve down in San Juan Valley and added a great amount of acreage to Beaverton Marsh Preserve just outside of Friday Harbor. On Lopez, we permanently protected Lopez Hill and also added an additional 75 acres to that property. The Watmau Bay addition was done fairly recently, earlier this year, which is a great addition to that project and basically completed protection of the bay. Channel Preserve on the west side of the island is one of those that provides great access down to some public tidelands and some great beach that is actually on the preserve as well. On Orcas, the North Shore Preserve, we did this earlier this year, also known as Glenwood Inn. That is an amazing public access project, allowing people to get to the shoreline, which is in very short supply in Orcas. We did a turtleback addition back in 2020, adding 35 or so acres to that property and connecting it down to Massacre Bay. In terms of trails, there were multiple roadside trail projects done. Deer Harbor on Orcas, Missing Mountain Road on San Juan, and Fisherman Bay Road on Lopez, just to name a few. We built over 6 miles of trails on land bank properties, and we've been working with a number of trails groups, including the Old Military Road Trail group, looking to actually complete trails in a broader context across San Juan Island and the other islands. In terms of facilities, we made improvements at San Juan Parks, and a big piece of that was actually to secure funding for additional projects. We opened the Channel Preserve, and we opened Zylstra Lake Preserve down in San Juan Valley. In terms of collaboration, we led the Terrestrial Managers Group, which consists of all the conservation land managers in the county. Some of the accomplishments we've had with the TMG have been initiating the Youth Conservation Corps and creating the San Juan Islands license plate, which serves to fund Youth Conservation Corps and a variety of other things, other environmental nonprofits around the county.
Excellent, thanks, Lincoln. And so we are going to use Poll Everywhere, as I mentioned in the beginning of our meeting tonight, with a few questions, a few polling questions. And this is a real-time polling tool. And the questions that we'll be posing to you all are related to priorities and activities in San Juan County and your priorities and preferences there. So you can respond in 2 different ways, and we're going to try this out at the next slide in just a moment. You can either use your laptop that you're calling in from right now and go to pollev.com/Cascadia, or you can use your cell phone. This is probably one of the only times in a meeting where people are encouraging you to take out your cell phones and use them while we're in the meeting. And so, and Haley just put the link in the chat there. So if you prefer to use your computer to answer the polls, then you can go straight using that pollev.com/Cascadia. If you'd like to use your cell phone, you can, you'd be texting Cascadia to 22333. And so you'll see what the screen would look like if you do that. So the top part where it says 2, that's where you'd put the 22333, and then you'd actually text the message to that number. So the number is 22333. The text message that you would create to get you into the poll would be Cascadia in all capitals. And so we're going to test this out now with the first question that we have for you. And as I mentioned, we've got a series of questions. So I'm going to give you a moment to either get over to Poll Everywhere on your computer and or get your cell phone in hand and text 22333 to Cascadia. And the question that we've got here is, which of the county's accomplishments are you most excited about? You're going to choose one option. So once you get into Poll Everywhere, Cascadia, then you would just pick A for land acquisition, B for new trails, C for facilities, and D for collaborative efforts. So that would be the second text that you would put, would be the letter associated with your response. I'll give you all a moment to answer this poll question, either via your computer or your cell phone. No, choices are hard. I see in the chat here from Steve from Lopez, we need ranked choice voting. Hard to pick one. Just asking for one tonight. Give everybody another minute to take this poll before I turn it back over to you, Lincoln. And if for some reason this isn't working for you, feel free to send Haley a message in the chat. We can help support you using this technology, and or you can put your response in the chat as well, and we'll get it recorded. A, B, C, or D. With that, we're going to go ahead and I will turn it back to you, Lincoln, for some more updates on the Ross plan.
Great, thanks, Gretchen. So I'm going to talk about the various elements included in this plan and what some of the potential projects might be. Starting with recreation, which includes activities like hiking, camping, biking, kayaking. In this, the facilities might include boat launches or docks, bike trails, campgrounds, or hiking trails. Some of the potential projects we have are constructing trail and trailheads. That'll be true in particular at Beaverton Marsh from Friday Harbor and also Katy Mountain. Those will be two of our big ones, and also the North Shore Preserve on Orcas. Improving docks at Hunter Bay and West Sound with possible additional mooring buoys. We'll come back to that one in a minute. Improving kayak launch areas, particularly at Jackson Beach, and creating additional camping opportunities.
Excellent. So the question that we have for you via Poll Everywhere, either from your computer or your cell phone, is what types of recreation do you participate in San Juan County? What types of recreation do you participate in San Juan County? And this is open-ended. So you can type your response. Hiking, sailing, camping. Let's see the way to get to Poll Everywhere on the top of that screen there. Another for hiking. Hiking, nature observing, like birding, plant and wildlife, beach walking, bicycling, and more recently, e-biking. Biking, hiking, fishing, hunting, bird watching, boating, sailing. Some great activities. Beaches. Cycling and kayaking too.
I got one in the chat for bird watching.
Excellent. Thank you for putting it in the chat too. We'll definitely record that. Another for hiking. Great. Adding water access, use of marine buoys. Thank you, everybody. So we can go to the next question here under recreation. Next question here is, what types of amenities or facilities would you like to see more of? And here you do get to do sort of ranked voting, ranked choice voting. So you get to vote for up to 3. And the options, A would be land for parks and natural areas, B, separated trails for walking and biking, C is upgrades and renovated existing facilities, D is improved access to water and beach, E is spaces for community events or performances, F, a new nature education program, and G, improved information on recreation, open space, and stewardship. We'll give this a moment as more votes keep coming in. And remember, you can vote up to 3 times. Y'all about another 30 seconds here before I turn it back over to you, Lincoln, for open space. Great. I think we're good to keep moving. Thanks, everybody.
All right, a little bit of everything. That's great. So the next part of this is open space. Open space includes natural areas, rural landscapes, parks for active recreation, and includes a little bit of each of these: natural area preserves, conservation easements on private land, and parks with camping or other active recreation. Some of the potential projects we're looking at are acquiring ecologically important areas, conservation easement purchases on private agricultural or forest lands to keep those working landscapes going, and acquiring land for additional camping or active parks.
Excellent. So our question related to stewardship here is, what should the purpose of land acquisitions be? Got a few choices: ecological, conservation, or recreation. We'll see the options here. Choosing one option, conservation only, is A. More conservation than recreation, B. Equal for conservation and recreation, which is C. More recreation than conservation is D. Recreation only is E. Give you all a few moments here. All right, looks like all the votes have come in. And again, if for whatever reason Pull Everywhere is not working for you tonight, feel free to put your response in the chat. We'll be sure to record it as well. Go to the next slide, please.
So moving on to stewardship, which is caring for our lands and waters and maintaining facilities within parks and natural areas. And some of these might include ecological land management and protection of nearshore habitats, creating and implementing management plans, performing all types of maintenance on buildings, parking areas, and trails, and cultivating volunteers and Conservation Corps participation. Some of the potential projects we're looking at, and again, I would just encourage everyone to take a look at the draft plan as it is online. There's a lot of detail in there and a lot of specific projects listed, particularly if you go down to the capital improvement section. So some of the potential projects here: assessing public forest lands and initiating restoration efforts. That's really geared around the goal of preserving resilience of our forest lands and landscapes in the face of climate change. Establishing clear protection areas to protect eelgrass habitat. That's coming back to the mooring buoy thing. This is really the first step, finding a way to clearly delineate where eelgrass is and deter people from anchoring in the eelgrass. The mooring buoys we'll be looking at as a way to, if we can set up mooring buoys to help people avoid anchoring and destroying eelgrass, that is something we'll be examining. Restoring shoreline at False Bay on San Juan, Agate Beach on Lopez, and West Sound on Lopez. We'll be creating a master plan for all county parks, and we'll be increasing capacity at trailheads and parking areas. In particular, the South Turtleback entrance is one place we'll be working, probably down at Watmel as well on Lopez.
Thanks, Lincoln. So for the stewardship category, we have one question for you here, which is, how should recreational opportunities be guided by sustainable tourism? And choice of one option: the county should build more facilities or infrastructure to support recreation, which is option A. And then the option B is the county should not build more facilities. Instead, the county should adjust management of existing infrastructure to protect resources. So two options here. Again, feel free to put it in the chat if you're unable to access Poll Everywhere tonight. We'll give you 30 seconds to a minute here. Okay, looks like everybody has voted, so we can keep moving to the next slide, please. Excellent. So at this point, we really wanted to turn it over to you all and open it up for any questions, comments, reflections related to the presentation, related to each of the areas that Lincoln just walked through, whether it was recreation, open space, stewardship. Please ask your question in the chat. And if you are, I'm not seeing anybody necessarily calling in, but if you are calling in on the phone, press *9. Go to the next slide, please. So are there any key concerns you've encountered at existing facilities? If yes, at which facilities? So I see your hand up, Janet. We'll get to you in just a moment, but specific question here related to, are there any key concerns you have encountered at existing facilities? I think for the previous slide, we'll go back one slide, and that's really opening it up for all questions. And then we have a specific question related to here. So we can go back one slide. And Janet, I see your hand up.
Oh, thank you very much. I wanted to say I really support the Youth Conservation Corps efforts, and also the addressing of the forest health and wildfire risk reduction in the county land. I'm really worried about climate change and wildfire risks, and also just the overgrowth of forests since the Europeans came and dissuaded the practice of periodic burning as a land management tool that the indigenous peoples practiced. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. We have a couple of comments in the chat here, one from Steve, which is related to that question about existing facilities. So mooring buoys do not adversely affect scenic aspects for those on land. Cottonmouth Bay should not have additional buoys or allow anchoring. During the summer months, there can be so many boats parked in Watmouth Bay that the beautiful view is obscured. And then from Tracy, also related to Watmouth Bay, no information for boaters on the shoreline would be a great place to share about eelgrass and its importance. Also a place to be able to access use and not just capturing the data at the parking area. So providing those additional comments in the chat. Any other overarching questions, comments, reflections for Lincoln and or for Angela here related to recreation, related to open space, related to stewardship, those 3 buckets as part of the Ross plan?
I'll just jump in here for a second to talk about the mooring buoy issue. It's definitely clearly a line that we have to walk between putting out mooring buoys and how many do we actually want out there versus having people anchor in the eelgrass, and it's a tough call. So I think the first step is really to do a better job of delineating where the eelgrass is and encouraging people not to anchor there. But we'll look at the mooring buoy question in Watmouth and elsewhere too. But it's going to take some study to really figure out what the best thing is to do.
Thanks, Lincoln. And then we have a question in the chat from Tracy. Are you wanting us to ask about the Ross plan or just tonight's presentation? So either they're both integrally connected. So if you have any specific questions about the actual plan versus the components of the plan that we've pulled out and presented on tonight, absolutely, now's a great time to ask. Do that by raising your hand. You can also put your question or comment reflection in the chat. Got a comment from Robin. Perhaps eelgrass info could be handed out at fueling spots like at Rush Harbor.
Yeah, that could be a really great idea. Something for us to look at. And Tracy's comment about putting information at Watmouth, I think that's also a really good point. I think we've been kind of short on providing information in a lot of places, and so that's something we're hoping to really do more of as we go forward.
And then from Sandy, eelgrass info in Wagony Boating Guide. Thanks for sharing that, Sandy.
Great.
Other general questions, comments, suggestions, either about the information that Lincoln pulled from the Ross plan or the Ross plan itself? Got a comment from Tracy. I like the term in our title connectiveness as listed under the new North Shore property. I'd like to see this more in the plan, as just stating natural areas doesn't always take into account the intertidal area. Trails can also use shoreline when possible as connecting to preserves, parks, and towns.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tracy. I think on North Shore, we're going to have kind of our hands full there, as there is a pinch point on that shoreline. So it is possible for people to go out onto the tidelands and then kind of get caught by the tide. So we'll have to figure that one out.
Got a comment in the chat from Janet. Friends of the San Juans is working on a project to mark eelgrass beds so that boats can avoid anchoring within them. And then from Robin, we find many boats anchored in eelgrass here at Roche. So thanks for spreading the word.
Definitely a big problem.
And as we go to this next slide, which has a more specific question here, and that question that Haley just put in the chat a few moments ago, are there any key concerns you've encountered at existing facilities? If yes, at which facility and what key concern? Haley just placed it again in the chat here for you all. Any key concerns you've encountered at existing facilities? And then we have a comment from Tracy about the plan itself in the chat. There's a point in the plan that lists local history. This should be broader to say local history, including tribal history.
Yeah, totally agree with that, Tracy. That's something that really has been glossed over, and we're really at the beginning of presenting that part of our history. So we'll be working on it.
Any comments, responses to this question here about existing facilities and any concerns you may have about them? Not seeing any questions in the chat. Not seeing any hands raised. Give it about another 30 seconds or so. I'm gonna go over next steps in just a moment here. And I do see Tracy in the chat, the poll hasn't changed since the last one. Not sure if there's anything on that, Haley, that you can offer via the chat.
Nope, that one will just stay up because we don't have any after it, I don't believe. So unless we go to another one, it will just stay at that one.
Yeah, stays at the last. That was likely what you're seeing, Tracy, is the last poll question. Don't have any more. Got a comment from Robin in the chat. We can go ahead to the next slide, please. We hope in the old military road effort to also recognize tribal importance, plus the benefit the road made toward peaceful resolution between Britain and the US. Thanks for adding that.
Great.
If any additional comments, questions, reflections, suggestions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. We can go to the next slide. We're going to just walk through a few key next steps here. The main one really being that the draft plan is up on the website, and you'll see the link here. We'll also put it in the chat in just a moment. And the time to comment on that draft plan, this is a time to comment, so we're saving the chat. We are also recording the meeting for those purposes as well. So anything that you share tonight will also be part of the public comment to the draft plan. If there are any other additional comments, please help spread the word that the comment period is open from October 10th, which was Monday, through the 17th. And so really looking forward to any and all additional comments there. And Haley put the link in the chat as well as the date for when that public comment period closes. With that, we can go to the next slide, please. Just really thanking each and every one of you for being here tonight, for walking through these key elements of the Ross plan, for all of your insights, reflections, suggestions in the chat. And thank you so much for your active participation, and have a really wonderful night. And I'll turn it over to you, Lincoln, for closing up this meeting.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for participating. And I can see we're getting some more comments in the chat there. One about Watmow Edition not being sold to BLM. We'll definitely be looking at the record of decision as it comes out from the National Monument before doing anything on that front. I think Tracy had another question too, just to go back to that one. The REIT tax renewal. So the real estate excise tax is what funds most of our conservation efforts at the land bank, and it will expire at the end of 2026. So there will be a renewal effort, most likely, probably in 2024, a couple of years ahead of that. Your point about the affordable housing REIT, you're correct. That is dependent on full funding of the land bank REIT. So if the land bank REIT is not renewed or is reduced, that would take away the affordable housing REIT as well. So definitely something for people to think about. In any case, thank you all. Take a look at the plan. I encourage you to do it. Give us your feedback, and we're here to listen to what you have to say.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. And with that, we will stop recording and formally close. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thanks all.